working? Hello? Hello, hello, hello. Councillor Adams? Right, Derek? Well, what can I say? Can I just check that the broadcast has started? Yeah, got the thumb. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor Boyd Elliott, Chair of the committee, and I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting, to the Overview Committee that is being broadcast live and recorded for publication. We'll go straight to agenda item 1, which is the Chairman and Vice Chairman appointments. To note the appointment of full council on the 16th of May 2024 of myself, Councillor Boyd Elliott, as Chairman, and of Councillor Glynn Gilfoyle as Vice Chairman of the Overview Committee for the 2024-25 municipal year. Don't need to, that's just okay. Agenda item 2 is the committee membership, and that's to note the membership of the committee for the 2024-25 municipal year as follows: Councillor Michael Adam, Councillor Steve Carr, Jim Creamer, Kate Foale, Mike Introna, Roger Jackson, Eric Kerry, John Ogle, Philip Owen, Francis Purdue-Horan, and David Shaw. Thank you. Agenda item 3 are the minutes of the last meeting, and I'll ask the committee, those that were there, to approve the minutes of the last meeting. I'll take a vote, show of hands. You were there, weren't you? Yeah, you were there, yeah. Yeah, you were. That was the meeting that got cancelled. Okay, that's fine, it's passed. Right. Agenda item 4, apologies for absence. Clark, any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. Okay. So we have apologies from Councillor Steve Carr for other reasons, apologies from Councillor Kate Foale, other reasons, with Councillor Michael Payne substituting, and apologies from Councillor Roger Jackson for medical illness, with Councillor Butler substituting.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Roger Jackson all the best from the committees. He's not very well at all, so wish him all the best, and to welcome Councillor Michael Payne MP, and I've not seen you in the chamber since the election, but I did see you on the evening, but I do congratulate you on your elevation to Parliament. Okay. Agenda item 5, declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has any interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand now if you have an interest to declare. If you have an interest to declare, you should state what type of interest it is and give brief details.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I'm a director of via East Midlands Limited.
Richard?
Yes, same declaration. Director of via.
So another director of via, Councillor Jackson. Anyone else? Okay, so Wayne Baxton. Yeah. Oh, Reg. Yeah. Reg, you're here, so do you want to? Yeah, I'm a director of via. Okay. So I know you're observing, but representing Nottingham County Council. Okay, I know you're here as an observer, but if you have any wisdom you'd like to interject later on, I'm sure I may indulge you. Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else with any interest? Oh, Councillor
I better act as me that's made the decision on our partnership, so I'm just here to see how it goes, and if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any.
Okay, thank you. That's Councillor Girling as well. It'd been easier to ask if anyone didn't have an interest. Okay, we go straight to agenda item 6 then, which is the budget monitoring report for 2024-25. And I'd like to invite Councillor Richard Jackson, the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, to introduce the report. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sure members will have read through this. The table on page 11 sets out the dates when we approve the budget monitoring report. It's a monthly report. A lot of councils only do this quarterly. I think it's important to do this on a monthly basis to keep and to publish it and to share it with members. Opposition groups have the opportunity, and I think take up the opportunity of a briefing with finance officers at every step. So it's an open and transparent process. What I will say is that the financial monitoring report, which is appended from page 15 onwards, is period 1. Those colleagues who have seen the cabinet papers for this Thursday will see that we've published period 2 monitoring report, And I think if there are any specific questions on this period 1 report, I'll rely on the proper officer to link the two together. And if anyone has any questions on that period 2, we've got it. We can answer questions on either period 1 or period 2 monitoring report, Chairman. So very happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. We know, as a committee, we really appreciate you coming monthly to give us the update. And as you've alluded to, it's that open transparency that the budget, and I think the budget process is working far better. Right. So I'll invite Nigel as an officer. Have you got anything you'd like to add further?
Nothing further to add,
Okay.
Chairman.
I'll now move the recommendations as detailed in the report, and ask for a seconder. And ask for a seconder.
Second.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Chairman.
Okay.
I'm just, sorry about that. Miles away. I'm reading. I'm just.
It's because it's second. He thought I had to ask him twice. Okay. I'm now going to open the floor for a debate. If anyone has any questions on the budget monitoring reports. Okay, Councillor Shaw.
Thanks. Referring to page 23, paragraph 25. We were promised in 2022 that we get regular updates on our new council office, Oak House on Top Wiggy Farm. Could you give the council an assurance that this has been built on time and on budget? Paragraph 25 states the debtor write-off total during the quarter 4 is 360,000 for 71 accounts, making the write-off to date 2023-24 £996,000 against 723 accounts. This is, of course, of concern to everyone here. The financial cliff the council stands on at the moment, are there any write-off debts for Oak House? And if so, who are they? And could you please let me know if there are, who is the biggest single debtor to the council?
Do you want to take those in order?
Yeah, as far as Oak House goes, we just had a briefing on Oak House, and it is progressing. It was early on in the build process delayed because of the terrible wet weather that we had, but it's back on target now. There are ARC officers. I don't know if it's appropriate for them to comment or not, Chairman. I'll leave that up to you. But it's taking shape, and you can really see now if you go past there what it's going to look like. I'll leave it to the 151 officer to talk about the question as far as paragraph 25 of the report goes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I won't answer the question on the Oak House because debts with Oak House are two different things. Because the report here is about debt write-off, and as paragraph 25 indicates, this is around domiciliary care. So it's about our care and our responsibility under the Care Act, and some of that will be against property debt, as was the change to the Care Act. And obviously, people's circumstances change, as do their care. And so what this indicates is the amount of post-understanding in terms of how much they have to contribute or how much the local authority has to contribute towards people's care. So it's not unusual, but you'll see from that table in 23, there is a significant amount of debt that will be connected to people's property in their calculation when it comes to care. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Councillor Shaw? Okay, thank you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you very much, Chair. And can I say, first of all, thank you to Nigel and officers, and also to Councillor Jackson for what is clearly a comprehensive report. And I haven't yet had sight of the second quarter monitoring report, so some of the questions may be addressed by that I'm going to ask. So just a few questions, if I may, Chair. The first question centres around procurement. So paragraph 28 in the report refers to the fact that there's been a £28 million increase in procurement set against the same period for last year, and doesn't really elucidate on the detail. I see there's a breakdown by directorate, but it'd just be helpful, I think, for the committee to understand what that is all about. The second point, which is not a question, but I think is important nonetheless, because it's been subject for debate in full council. The front end of the report draws attention to the fact that the pressures in this year may now not be met by the money that we've set aside in the budget, and they are for reasons that are understandable. And the report particularly draws attention to the fact that it's been really difficult in recent years having a one-year settlement. And I just want to put on record my thanks and I intend to keep pressing this in Parliament for the fact that the Deputy Prime Minister has now made it clear that there is going to be a long-term settlement for local government, and I hope that's forthcoming at the end of this year. Obviously, we're not far off the local government finance settlement, but I intend to keep pressing on that issue, and I know Councillor Jackson, from speaking to him earlier, will continue to press the case on that. I think it's absolutely critical. Nigel, you will know I've raised questions before about capital receipts, and there is specific reference in here to the fact that there is going to be use of capital receipts to set off prior year's debt. In 2023, there was a cabinet report, January, that said that we were forecast to have just over 35, I think it was 37 million in capital receipts for the year 23-24. That was what was budgeted. We then forecast we were going to get 21 million, so that was in January 2023. Fast forward to January 2024, that same year, the forecast was revised down from 21 million to 7.1 million. I'd just like to know what we actually received in capital receipts for 23-24. Was it anywhere near the 7.1 million, let alone the original 35 million? You know that I've raised concerns before about forecasts of capital receipts being way out from where we actually ended up, and there is specific reference into this report of using capital receipts to offset previous year's debts. And I'm just pressing the issue about, are our forecasts in the right place? And I know these are not easy because things move, things slip, things happen, but I think it is an important question for us to ask. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
I thank Councillor Payne for his questions, and also particularly for raising the issue of the longer term settlement at another house, which I'm grateful. As regards the specific questions in terms of 28, I haven't got the detail in terms of why significantly that the amount is increased in terms of the procurement amount, but I can come back to the committee in terms of what we've seen as a significant increase. Because it's related to activity, it might be just with the timing of the procurement, this particular phase, particularly in some adult social care ones, where we would account for the contract being 4 years, and it's this year that we've actually done the procurement. I don't want to give the impression that it's because suddenly we're outsourcing more or we're doing more activity external. It's just probably because of the timing of the procurement activity in this particular year, but I'll come back to the committee. In terms of the capital receipts, it's a question really for year end, which there's a report going to Cabinet again on Thursday. I think I'll draw the members' attention to the report that's going for the answer that's giving in there, rather than in this, which is about budget monitoring in this financial year. But yeah,
I accept that, Nigel, but you will take my point that there is specific reference made in this report about the use of capital receipts, and given that it's referenced in this report, I mean, I can reference the Cabinet report, but I'm just putting it on record because it's been raised before and it's particularly referenced here. If I may, just while I've got the floor, Chair, just finally, are you confident, Nigel, that the 10.8 million that's been set aside in the contingency fund around the pay award is going to be enough to cover where we're at? Obviously, there is conversation ongoing around some of the public sector pay issues at the moment. There's also obviously ongoing to-ing and fro-ing around the situation in terms of local government staff specifically, because obviously that is a major ticket item, isn't it, in the budget, and has the ability to knock us sideways if we're not in the right place. And I know in previous years you've got a good track record of setting aside the right contingency roughly to make sure that we are covered, but are you confident that that is in the right place given where the conversations and discussions are at the moment?
Again, thank you. In terms of the capital receipts, I'll be honest and say that obviously we do the monitoring on a monthly basis with colleagues in property, and I would not be surprised that there will be some slippage in that. What's important to note is the overall total will be achieved. It's just the year, and a lot of that is out of our control, planning, permission, and also whether the people in the market in terms of development, in terms of maybe a new government and maybe targets around housing, we might see an improvement and maybe acceleration of some of those capital receipts in future years. Who knows? I'm grateful for your comments around our assumptions around the pay award. We did make an overall assessment about 5.5 in our assessment for the budget. As you know, that settlement has not been achieved, and therefore I don't know what it's likely to be. We do have an additional 3 million of contingency to give us some of that leeway about with its top. So let's hope as negotiations continue for the pay award, it is within the amount that we assume. But again, we do cover some of that risk in the risk approach that we take for the general fund balance.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Creamer, you're up next.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a simple one. Item 7 again about contingency. There's a £500,000 budget. I'm just wondering if that has been reviewed lately. It doesn't seem to be reviewed for quite a while at £500,000, and I'm just wondering with inflation, etc., whether that's considered to be enough for the emergency budget, basically.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor, it's 5 million, not £500,000.
Oh, 5 million. Yeah.
Have you got a spare pair of glasses, please?
Yeah.
But the question, is it enough anyway?
It's plenty.
Yeah, it's proved in the last 6 or 7 years that 5 million has been sufficient and continues to manage that. Again, it is risk. It's based on risk. Just as Councillor Payne's question around pay award, some of that may be required for the pay award depending on where that is. Likewise, we've had a number of flooding incidents that's required us to dip in contingency. So those sorts of things keep us in good stead. But and also we are planning to use £1 million of that 5 million towards potholes, which again will be coming for the cabinet paper later on this.
Yeah, later on this week.
We've said this before. It's important just to realise it's not 5 million and the taps are turned off. So there's a figure that has to be in there from an accountant's point of view. You know, God forbid there's natural disasters, etc., and there's a need to go over that 5 million. It wouldn't suddenly be that we stopped spending on that sort of thing. So just reassure you.
Thank you. Councillor Purdue-Horan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suppose in this, my question could be answered later if the answer is not available today. In the 24-25 annual budget report, a decision was taken to limit borrowing, yet paragraph 40 of the cabinet papers for next week state it is anticipated that borrowing in 24-25 will increase by 24.7 million from the forecast in the budget report, and just looking for an explanation of why the earlier report states we will limit borrowing, but then another report says the opposite.
Okay,
thank you.
As we're on this for the budget review monitoring, are you going to answer that on Thursday? Do you want to touch on it?
Well, I can answer that question now. There's two different things between what we actually borrow and the borrowing requirement. So what this report would indicate is that the borrowing requirement is that if we didn't do other measures, which we do take, which is internal borrowing, then that's how much we would have to increase our borrowing. We didn't do additional borrowing last year. In fact, we repaid 10 million as we did for the last 3 years. I would find that unlikely that we would be finding any additional borrowing for the next 3 years, albeit the borrowing requirement would indicate that we would do. So we've got sufficient internal balances to cover us without taking any external borrowing.
Anyone else signal to speak that I've missed? I can just confirm that all members have had all their points captured. Happy? Okay. Thank Nigel and Richard, and I'm going to take the vote on a show of hands now. All in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Do you want you stay? Happy to stay? Yeah. Well, love to stay. Okay, you're more than welcome to. Okay, we'll move to agenda item 7, which is the Art Property Services Partnership Limited Contract. I'm going to ask Councillor Keith Gurley, Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Asset Management, to introduce the report. Welcome, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I didn't realise we actually introduced the report, but basically, this is about continuing the contract with ARC, and there's several reasons for that. And from my point of view as a cabinet member, they bring a lot of value to this council. I think it was an initial idea of the previous administration before the last one, so Labour, to bring in ARC. So it's this is all part of continuing that, but also improving the sort of things that they do. For example, we're now getting a team in to be able to deal with the small bits of land and the irritating properties around the county that give councillors the most hassle, because they're the ones where the antisocial behaviour is, where the vandalism is, where it's costing us to maintain. So we've got a team in now that's going to be working on that to either sell it, do it up, or move it on, or whatever. So I think ARC brings so much to the table for us, and we get a dividend from them, which is very nice. Thank you very much. So this is about continuing that and giving them the assurance moving forward so that they can do their investment. I'll put it on to Derek as well, who might want to say.
Well, I'm going to bring Derek and Wayne in.
Yeah, well, I'm going to. That's what we're doing now.
Right,
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think we've got a brief presentation. Well, I know we've got a brief presentation, so I'll hand over to Derek and Wayne. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Thank you, Chairman Martin. I think you're just going to drive the slides for me. Members, good morning. Just got a few slides just to kind of summarise the report in front of you around our partnership. It covers quite a bit of territory. We've got a very, very short video that we're going to try to show you first of all. Fingers crossed, Martin.
Since 2016, we've committed to creating a world everyone deserves by delivering real value together for a healthy, prosperous, green future. We are a joint venture formed by Nottinghamshire County Council and Scape in 2016 as an exclusive 10-year service contract with the potential for a 5-year extension through to 2031. We deliver multidisciplinary property design, consultancy, master planning, regeneration, project programme management, emergency, reactive, compliance asset management and planned services on behalf of Nottinghamshire County Council and the communities and people it represents. Through our property services, we also support regeneration and economic growth for Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands. We consult, design, build, manage and maintain. Bringing projects to life. From inception, we provide expert pre-construction and consultancy advice, ensuring projects both interpret our clients' needs and that are safe and sustainable. We provide a talented and passionate multidisciplinary service of experienced and diverse designers, covering architecture, structural engineering and building services. Our architectural team are an RIBA chartered practice. All our designers are committed to excellence in design and service delivery across a wide range of built environment projects. We aim to create places and spaces that inspire, delight, and provide cost-effective solutions which deliver an inclusive and engaging experience for our clients and the communities we serve. We develop places and spaces across Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands that people love to live, work and visit. As both an enabler and direct deliverer, we regenerate land and property for the benefit of the community, creating socio-economic value for Nottinghamshire. We work with project teams that deliver value for money, quality of output and customer excellence using delivery partners on the Scape frameworks to deliver projects at pace. Working with local SMEs, we project manage and deliver planned maintenance to improve public buildings including schools, libraries and more across Nottinghamshire, making them more efficient and sustainable. In addition, we also provide public buildings with high quality risk management services, including statutory compliance services to support health and safety, building and facilities management, servicing and responsive repairs, plant and equipment maintenance, translating complex legislation into strategies, policies and procedures, reducing exposure by managing risk effectively. We have a dedicated call centre for responsive repairs, as well as operating a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year emergency call-out service for urgent repairs for the County Council's property portfolio. We deliver a mixed economy approach to procurement, underpinned by a commitment to local spend and employment. To date, we have delivered more than 3,200 built environment projects across Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands, with a local spend of £292 million. We're proud of the engagement of our own local delivery frameworks, engaging with 57 partners, of which 89% are SMEs. Health and safety is embedded into everything we do at ARC Partnership, whether that's on a large construction site or at a desk at home or in the office. We believe nothing is so important that it cannot be delivered safely. We're proud to report we've been RIDDOR free since 2016. We're proud to be a Building a Safer Future registered signatory. We're ISO 45001 accredited for our occupational health and safety management system. We support the County Council's vision of a healthy, prosperous and green Nottinghamshire. We've signed up to the Construction Waste Portal to minimise the environmental impact of construction projects being delivered on behalf of the County Council. Our carbon reduction plan sets out how we will make a responsible contribution to the decarbonisation of local communities, supporting the County Council's ambition to become net carbon neutral by 2030. We have a talented and passionate team who represent best practice in collaborative service delivery and reflect our values of being accountable, reliable and collaborative. We're delighted to have partnerships with Nottingham Trent University and the University of Nottingham focused on developing career pathways for growing local talent across the construction sector, as well as sharing insights and opportunities of the skill needed by the future workforce. We're a collaborative partnership with an informed client, trusted to secure the very best results from public-private sector collaborations, driving sustainable growth, creating social value, and building a strong, lasting legacy and resilient future, delivering real value together.
Okay, thank you. Just to introduce the report then a little bit. Obviously, the purpose of the report is to outline our intention to consider the extension of the contract that was first established in 2016, as you've heard, to the period to 2031, and there's an allowance in the contract for that. And obviously, this is the opportunity for OVU to committee to consider and comment upon both the contents of the report and the opportunities that contract extension might bring. So I'm just going to add a few more slides just to kind of exemplify the report a little bit more. So you can see from the slides, from the slide in front of you then, that what we wanted to do back in 2016 was establish a property venture, a property approach for the County Council that gave us welcome stability, commercial flexibility, and secure the continuing employment of what was then an in-house property team. And certainly, I think it's the officer view that ARC has absolutely delivered upon that over the last 10 years, last 8 years rather, or so. Obviously, the purpose of the venture was also to support our ongoing delivery, particularly around our asset management priorities, but also our capital programme. At the time, that was a reducing capital programme. In the years since then, our capital programme has grown significantly, particularly in the realms of education and school provision. And I'll touch back on that in a minute or so. And that's been a significant area of activity for ARC and a significant area of success for the council as well. What we've also seen over the last few years is our move into more of a support space for the council in terms of our development opportunities as well. And there's one or two examples both in the report and on the slide there around how ARC has supported the council's economic growth and regeneration activities through its approach to asset management and land use development as well. Thanks, Martin. So in terms of the kind of overarching benefits, I've touched already upon that question of kind of continuing employment, expertise in a commercial sense around property and asset management, and also delivering value for money. And we've seen over the last 7 or 8 years that ARC has been able to not just deliver a range of services that we set it up to manage, but also to take on other services that are property related that have been difficult for the council to manage internally for a number of reasons. And a really good example of that is what's called our compliance function. So that's where we manage our fire, asbestos risk and so on. That wasn't part of the original contract for ARC. ARC now manage that function for us and do so in a way that's significantly more effective than we were able to do in-house, partly because of the commercial flexibilities and labour flexibilities that ARC has as a non-council employer. I think it's also the case to say that what ARC can do, and again it's something that the council struggles to do, is flex up and down according to the changes in our capital programme and our revenue maintenance programme requirements. And of course ARC's able to both draw down in a slightly more flexible way than the council can, subcontractor network, and to generate strategic relations with that subcontractor network that are to the council's advantage. And that commercial skill that ARC has got, because it's now got a blend of staff who have got both public and private sector backgrounds, mean that it's got really adept and sound commercial negotiating skills as well. Thanks, Martin. Slightly difficult to see that slide, but you'll see that it's broken down in the report. And what you can see is that ARC is now the provider of the majority of the council's property services. What we keep in-house is, if you like, the kind of strategic brain, our strategic asset management approach, so that the council still sets the priorities for its premises and its assets and its land for ARC. ARC is, as the video outlined, our key delivery partner now for pretty much every aspect of our asset management. But the council still has its hand firmly on the tiller in terms of strategic direction, choice of spend, and choice of priority as well. Thanks, Mark. So just a few highlights then to finish around current programmes and activity. I mentioned that education infrastructure, both in terms of new builds, refurbishment, school expansions, school refurbishment, has been a significant part of the ARC and the council story over the last 7 or 8 years. And there are just a few examples there of schools that ARC have either developed or critically acted as our client for. So increasingly in an academised world, particularly in the secondary sector, where we've seen in the last few years secondary schools expand significantly, multi-academy trusts are able to deliver those capital programmes themselves, but they use funding provided by the council to do that. And what ARC does is act as our client, if you like, our clerk of works for those big secondary expansion projects. And that is a really helpful way for the council to ensure that we get value for money from our limited basic needs funding in the secondary space, and we can hold multi-academy trusts to account to deliver value for money for the council and for the council taxpayer as well. And then if we go on to the next slide, Martin, a few more examples there of some significant projects. You can see from there that it's not just about education. There's a wide range of capital projects and programmes that the council delivers as well, both across children's services, but more broadly across the council's overall estate as well, both from a service and premises delivery perspective, but also from a corporate asset management perspective and our office building and rationalisation programme that is a significant part, as was referenced earlier, of our medium-term financial strategy approach. Thanks, Mike. Just to continue on the theme of the video around social value. ARC, as a public-private partnership, the council has stressed the need for the partnership to add social value to its activities, and it's got a very, very large subcontractor network that is in the region of 90% in the D2, N2 area. So most of the subcontract framework providers are small and medium enterprises that are based in and around the East Midlands. Likewise, even with the largest strategic partnerships that ARC has got, many of those draw employment from locally based employees. ARC has also got a strong approach to carbon reduction and is committed, as the video said, to meeting the council's ambitions around achieving net zero by 2030. Last thing then. So just to kind of conclude the slides, we have a strong, as you would expect us to have, a strong contractual arrangement with ARC. Whilst we part own the company and to sit on the board and are shareholders in the company, we control ARC's activities through our contract with them. And our contract is well managed within our property team and closely managed within our property team. And we have a strong set of key performance indicators through which we measure the impact and the benefit of the work that ARC does. And what we've done there is summarise some of the key KPIs for you, just to highlight the fact that ARC, in contractual terms, is a strong performer for the county council and delivers both efficiency and value for money and timeliness in the majority of its project and programme activity for the council. Thanks, Martin. So just to kind of conclude and to restate the purpose of the report, members, it's really to enable the committee to comment upon the contract that the council has with ARC and the relationship that that we have with ARC in advance of consideration by the cabinet member of a possible extension of the existing contractual arrangements for the period from 2026 to 2031. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, and thank you very much for the presentation. Now move to the recommendations as set out on page 37 of the bundle, and seconder. Thank you. And I'll open it up for debate. Anyone wishing to? Councillor Kerry, want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm really looking forward to the future extension of the contract. Looking specifically at paragraph 35 in the package, and it's about the third-party income that has grown and managed growth, I think, from 2016 forward. Can you give us a little bit more indication of the future? As it shows up to 23, 24 on here, do you believe that you can further increase that third-party business and grow the company?
Thank you, Councillor Kerry. Derek, do you want to say that?
Thank you, Councillor Kerry. And I'm conscious here, I should explain perhaps that obviously I'm the Exec Director for Place. Colleagues who would normally be answering these questions, because they sit on the board of ARC, our guidance is that we're best placed for me to pick up those questions. But I have sat on the board of ARC in the past, so I know the company really well. The short answer to your question is yes, absolutely. What we anticipate is seeing ARC continue to trade well. It's established a really good regional and increasingly national reputation. In large part, that's because of the pipeline of activity and works that the council has put through ARC over the last few years. So it's got a really good reputation as a excellent constructor and contractor around school builds, for example. Some of the work that it's done that's referenced in the slide deck at Clayfields, the secure children's home that we've got, is really, really specialist because of the nature of Clayfields. And again, that's a really marketable skill set that the company has. So those skills, that track record of delivery, means that the company is really well placed to develop additional external income. Likewise, its kind of expertise in things like compliance, that health and safety, that asbestos risk management is a skill set that is relatively unique in companies. So many companies are good at one thing or good at another thing. ARC has got a kind of one-stop shop, if you like, around property services. That is really marketable because it's a simple solution to buyers who want to buy that kind of service. I suppose the last thing I'd say is that the development of the East Midlands Combined Authority provides opportunities for ARC and for the council to think about how the approach that we've piloted here and the trail that we've blazed here could be applied in other parts, potentially of the East Midlands, in other regions as well. And I feel regular inquiries from other local authorities who are really interested in learning from and potentially being part of this kind of approach in the future. So I think in income terms and revenue terms, the future is a positive one for ARC.
Councillor Ogle.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I noticed on the presentation the current professional fees are 11.6% and the target is 16%. You obviously intend to expand to 16%, but what are the extra services that would be provided and what services are provided for the 11.6%?
So thank you. That's a really good question. The actuality of the KPI set means that the upper limit for fees is 16%. The current fee rate is just under 12%. So what that demonstrates to the council is that ARC is adept at managing the fees that it charges, but also that all of the professions charge when we develop significant capital projects. So what fees covers is everything but the direct build cost, if you like, if it's a new building. So it'll be the surveying, it'll be the design, it'll be the feasibility works, it'll be all the kind of ancillary professional activities that we need to do to deliver a capital project, whether that's conveyancing or legal or financial management or whatever. What the KPI demonstrates is our ability to ensure that ARC can manage down its fees, and that helps us deliver better value for money.
You happy, John? Okay. Councillor Creamer.
Thanks. Just on the social value on paragraph 37, thanks for bringing it up because there was more information on the slide, so that has answered a couple of the questions I was actually going to ask. But on the social value bit, you mentioned the carbon reduction targets, which is the right thing to do. But are there any statistics or figures as to how it's actually doing at the moment, where ARC actually is with that? And as well, you mentioned contractors. So I just wondered, although there's a percentage of contractors, just how much work local contractors in value are actually getting against the national contractors. So if those two items, the social value, would there be any merit in giving reports at least every year, perhaps every 6 months, to those particular issues of social value and of the carbon reduction? That's just assuming we go ahead with it.
Thank you. That's again a really good question. I'm going to bring in Dan Marr, the MD of ARC, just to pick up on that, the first two parts of your question. And just to say, members, Dan has arrived back from his holiday this morning and has hot-footed it from the airports to be with us this morning. So I'm really grateful to Dan for making it just about on time this morning. But just to pick up on that question of kind of more regular reporting, what we're looking to do is to provide a wider report on the performance of all of our kind of owned companies or partly owned companies through the Governance and Ethics Committee beginning this autumn, so that we can provide members with an overall view of the performance of the company vehicles that the council either owns or has a part stake in. And in that, through those reports, we should be able to pick up on those questions of social value and in our broader approach to environmental reporting, which we take through the Place Select Committee and Overview Committee, I think we've been to as well. We also report on progress in terms of carbon reduction of our vehicles as well, because there's an element of that we include within our reporting. But I'll ask Dan just to pick up on that question of where ARC is on carbon reduction and what its subcontractor numbers look like.
Hi, morning everyone. In terms of carbon reduction, there's two parts we play. We have our own carbon reduction targets. So I think you see in the report about 92% of our material that came from our demolitions or our new builds or whatever we're doing planned maintenance is diverted from landfill. We've got our own carbon reduction plan. We've done the easy things within that plan. The hardest thing is our small SMEs. We've got 52 SMEs employed by ARC. They're delivering about 270 odd million pounds of the local spend. As most of our organisations, even the large organisations, are local providers, and that's a working hand because obviously some of them are small, very small SMEs, and some are much larger SMEs. The more larger providers like your Kears and your Morgan Sindles, your Balfour Beatties have quite sophisticated carbon reduction plans and report on those on every single project. Whereas smaller SMEs, in terms of everybody going to the same, for example, everybody takes the waste through wards locally, and we get those figures back. But we're well on that journey. So I think at the moment, our carbon reduction targets, we're exceeding it in terms of the target we wanted to. We're a year-on-year reduction, but there's a long way to go in terms of them SMEs. And it's one of the disadvantages of taking a lot of small SMEs on. They're not as sophisticated as the large organisations, so it is a working hand. In terms of local spend, one of the things that the original party that were in power when we first took over, one of the original drivers to employ local people, and we've worked really hard on that. And you can see from the numbers, most of our organisations are long term. They've been working for 8 years, but some have been working for the council for 20, 30 years. And we built on that, and we continue to build on that. And you'll see a number of frameworks going out to the market that'll add to that going forward. We report on our KPI in terms of local spend on a monthly basis. We report formally to the board on a quarterly basis, and obviously it goes to all through various committees in terms of what we do. So I think we've got a strong position there. But on the carbon one, there's still work to be done. The largest thing on the carbon one is working with the council on its wider portfolio in terms of decarbonisation of buildings, which is a much harder task. But playing a good role within that and working with the council to get a plan ready for it's a property strategy over the next few years. So hopefully that answers that. I'm sorry if I'm a bit hoarse. It's been a long journey right from America, so apologies. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. That's very informative and very welcome. It's just a pity in some respects that it couldn't have been actually, some of that couldn't have been included in the paper earlier because it is actually a public document, and you'll have to look on Zoom to get all that information at the moment, or the minutes of the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, Councillor Introna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Derek, for the report. Paragraph 28, you talk about the health and safety record. Just for clarity, the 0 RIDDORs since 2016, is that just for ARC personnel, or is that for the whole projects that have been undertaken in that time?
Thank you. So that will that is both of those things, is my understanding. So it's both for ARC staff and obviously council staff as well in terms of the projects that we've been involved in. But I think it also applies, just check, to the subcontractor framework as well when they're involved in those projects.
Okay. Having an industrial manufacturing background, which includes some significant construction projects, that is a pretty amazing record, and I think that needs noting. That is an amazing record. 8 years in construction, one of the most significantly risky occupations out there. That's a fantastic record. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, Kerry.
Thank you, and thank you for that. Those kind comments. And just to say that certainly from an officer perspective, I absolutely agree with that. One of the significant shifts that we've seen, both with ARC and, as we'll discuss shortly, with Fire, is a really big improvement in health and safety compliance, but also performance, and of course the health and safety culture within those organisations that drives really good quality health and safety performance. Both of the companies are large employees, and that kind of statistic means that our employees are much safer than perhaps they were prior to 2016, and I think that's a matter very worthy of note.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. And I think it's beholden on us as members, first of all, to say thank you to Dan and the wider team in ARC. Clearly, from both the report and the presentation Derek's given today, but also from our first-hand experience in our own divisions, the role of ARC has played a critical life in the delivery of services to the people who rely on them across the county. And notwithstanding the questions that I'm going to ask, I think you and your team deserve a huge amount of credit, Dan, for the work that you have done, and I think that is borne out in the report. I also just wholeheartedly agree with what Councillor Introna just said, Chair. I think it is more than worth significant note. It's significant commendation, I think, your delivery in terms of health and safety compliance in what is clearly quite a dangerous and unpredictable environment. And I think the small footnote in this report doesn't give it credit. And I think your staff deserve significant commendation on behalf of elected members, Dan, for the work. The first point I want to make, Chair, is that I was slightly disappointed, and this is not criticism, but as a lay elected member, that this report, nowhere I could find in the report, tells me the scale of the contract. This is significant taxpayers' money. This is a major contract, important for the reasons that I've just set out. So this is not a point of criticism, but I just think as a lay member, given that we're asking a cabinet member, presumably Keith, to make a decision and or cabinet, given the scale of the decision, I'm not sure whether this meets the threshold to go to full council, that it just would have been really helpful up front in the report to say what is the scale of the contract. Clearly the local spend amount and other figures that are drawn to in the report give you some impact of that, but I just would have liked to have seen that up front in the report. This is not a comment on the value or not of the cabinet member agreeing to the report or not, but I just want to make this point for public record. I slightly worry that we are taking a decision 8 or 9 months out from a Purdue period of an all-out county council election that may potentially fetter the discretion of an incoming administration around what is clearly a critical contract for the county council. Now, that is not me saying I don't think we should do it. That's not me saying I think there are merits or otherwise, but I'd just like to understand what is the reason why the decision is being taken now, given that the contract clearly runs until 2026, which is at least 2 years or a year and a half after an all-out county council election, with a clause to run through till 2021. And you'll understand why I'm asking that question. It is not a comment on whether I think it's right or not, but I think it needs to be raised. 2 points of credit, I think, are worth drawing out in the report. The over 95% of employees living within the D2N2 area, I remember the conversation at the time when this was established, and I think that again is worth significant credit that that's been achieved. And I was very struck by the 87% of SMEs that have been engaged through the delivery framework being from the local area as well, the D2N2 area. I think that is of note. I had, and I'm glad you did this, Derek, in the presentation, a recommendation, if I may, before Keith takes the decision as a cabinet member. I wanted to see more in section 27 about the KPIs. This is a massive decision being taken by the cabinet and or cabinet member. You drew attention to the KPIs in your presentation. They're not in the public report. And I expect that this report forms the basis of the report the cabinet member is going to sign off, because there'd be no reason for you to give different information to us than to the cabinet member. I would like to see the report bolstered and the KPIs put in. I particularly think you should include it, given the fact that the presentation demonstrates that you've achieved really well on the KPIs. And as elected members, we should be asking questions around the KPIs. I take Dan's point that it's reported quarterly and monthly to the board. 2 financial points which are either for you, Derek, or Dan. What's the pension risk? The report makes clear that the responsibility for the local government pension scheme element sits with what is the pension risk, and it makes the point about the 1 year surplus, but what is the exposure to pension risk? And the flip side of that coin, whilst it says that there's a good visibility in terms of the order book, what's the risk exposure for ARC in terms of the projects that it's going to deliver? Local government finance at the moment is a volatile place. The economy is still very volatile. What's the risk exposure, notwithstanding the fact that you're working with Staffordshire and Oxfordshire and other places? I'd just like to understand a little bit around that. And then a final point, which is a criticism, but also included in the criticism is praise, given the point Dan's just made and the point you've made powerfully, Derek, about social value being at the heart of ARC, I think it's pretty disappointing that 8 years into the contract, there hasn't been a social value report set out in the way that you have just explained. I welcome what you've said about going to Governance and Ethics Committee and wrapping that all up in terms of the other owned companies we've got, but we're 8 years into the project, and by the sounds of what Dan said today and what you've said, there's information there that could be distilled into a report, and I would have liked to have seen that today brought together, because it sounds like you've got a really good story to tell. I don't know whether it's possible before you sign the contract. Clearly we're not making that decision today. That's a matter for Keith and his cabinet colleagues. But I think if in pretty quick time that report can be pulled together, even if it's not an extensive report, it wouldn't be unhelpful for it to be an appendices to the cabinet members' decision, because clearly there is a good story for you to tell around that. So they would be my questions and comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Derek and Keith to respond. Yeah.
So thank you for those questions. I'll try to cover them all off. Please highlight if I've not done so, Councillor Payne. So scale of the contract it's quite a difficult one to quantify, because the financial relationship between ARC and the county council is driven by the size of our revenue investment on maintenance, but particularly the size of our capital programme. And what ARC does is scale up and scale down accordingly. But I think it's a fair challenge for us to identify the broad financial quantum that we cover, and we can certainly provide some more detail on that in future reports. But I think the core point is that it's very much driven by the size of the capital programme. When ARC was established, what we envisaged at that time was a significantly reducing capital programme, and ARC was kind of built, if you like, with that in mind, the ability to scale down. What we quickly discovered was that in actual fact there are opportunities for us to grow the capital programme, particularly around school and educational provision. So the council made a decision in 2017, I think, to develop the Orchard School in Newark, for example. That was one of ARC's first big, really major projects, and of course that drives the financial quantum, the financial relationship between the council. But we can absolutely pick up on that. In terms of the timing of the decision, I think it's a fair challenge. The drivers for that are several. I suppose the first is certainty for ARC as an organisation, as a company, and certainty for its workforce as well. ARC operates in a very, very competitive labour market, where the skills that it's got and the skills of the people that it's got are in demand. They can leave, and if ARC is in an uncertain position in terms of what its future might hold, bluntly, those staff are more likely to walk than if it's certain about its future. And I think I wouldn't underestimate the significance of that. I think the other thing to say is that we're now dealing with, as we showed in the report and in the slides, with capital programs that have got a very, very long development phase, and also a long tail in terms of delivery, construction and so on. That requires a lot of medium and long-term planning. It's very difficult for a partner to do that for us and with us if we're contemplating a different decision, or if we're taking them right to the wire in terms of contract extension. And that's the reason why, certainly from an officer perspective, we're very keen to provide our partner, which has a very strong track record, with contractual certainty going forward. What I would say is that because of the way that the contract is constructed, and because of the way that the council is a part owner of ARC, and this applies, but more so with VIA, we are in a position to vary things as we see fit in the future, regardless of where we are now. And I think that's an important point for members to bear in mind. The third question you mentioned was around KPIs, and absolutely we can put more detail in. I think the challenge for officers with this kind of report is we can write very, very long reports around this. What we've tried to do is to summarise things for you, but we can add a little bit more detail in on that in future reports. Pension risk. So Councillor Gurley mentioned the dividend that ARC has been able to offer in the previous financial year for the first time, and that's because of the way that the pension risk has been managed over the last 7 or 8 years by ARC. But it's also because of the external factors, the pension valuation issues that drive the risk associated with pensions in ARC. We're in a good place at the moment with pensions risk in ARC, which is why we've been able to, or ARC has been able to declare a dividend. It's one of the big reasons, because until that pension risk is funded, if you like, ARC has been unable to declare a dividend. So the fact it has is a good sign. It is worth saying, though, that like investments, pension risk can go up as well as down. And they aren't factors that the council can control. The valuations that are done externally and independently on a 3-yearly basis, I think it is. So we're in a good place at the moment, but it's something that I know the board is actively monitors as well. As far as a kind of longer term risk around capital pipelines, if you like, ARC and the council through the board arrangements and also through the contractual arrangements has always been the council has been very clear with ARC that the purpose of ARC is to deliver value for the council, not to just generate external commercial activity. And so ARC is very much focused on our capital and revenue programme requirements. What we can see at the moment is quite a strong pipeline of capital programmes, and members will see that in the reporting that's done through Councillor Gurley's portfolio on the capital programme, that will provide certainty, certainly for the next 2 to 3 years for ARC. If the situation changes and the government's approach to school places, for example, changes in a significant way in the coming years, that certainty that we've got over the next 2 to 3 years will provide us with enough cushion to be able to change the business approach of ARC in conjunction with Dan and the team. And of course, bear in mind that it was in that context that ARC was established in the first place. So there's still some muscle memory around that. And then the last point you made was around social value. Yes, and on reflection, that is absolutely something that we could perhaps have been clearer on for members earlier, and that's something for us to bear in mind in the future.
Can I add to that? Sorry, Councillor Payne, just on that one, we have gone out for an external report done by the Social Value Portal, so we're expecting that back within the next few weeks. It's an independent report, rather than us saying what we do, somebody else independently verifies it, so we can get that ready for the next meeting.
Thank you. Keith, just before you come in, I think Nigel's just going to come in about maybe the pension.
If I may, on the pensions risk, Councillor Kerry, you're welcome to join us at Pensions Committee, Councillor Payne, to get a bit more understanding of how pensions are managed and the calculations. And I'm sure Councillor Kerry would welcome you joining the Pensions Committee. As you probably will be aware, there are 2 different calculations that go around about pensions liability, but overall it depends on the funding of the pension fund. And over the years, we are now hurtling towards being fully funded. That's what has enabled the dividend to be, as Derek was alluding to in terms of external factors. But there's 2 different calculations that take place. One is the triannual valuation that sets the amounts, the contributions, of which the next triannual valuation is March. But what happens at the end of each year is to do with accounting standards. That's what sets the liability factor. But because of interest rates being so high, the discount value has gone up, so the liabilities have come down in terms of the way that it's done the calculations, which has enabled the company to provide a dividend. But be assured that the overall risk is managed 50-50 between how it is split in terms of the ownership overall of the company.
Thank you, Nigel. Bring Keith in first, then Wayne. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the question, particularly on why before the election and things like that, about tying and whoever is a ruling party within the council, because I never anticipated actually whoever it is would not want to do it, so that was not really a factor. What was really a factor for me was the fact that I'm putting more demand on ARC and for them to do the investment they need to do, they need that assurance really, because we've looked at, okay, so say the contract comes to an end and we decide not to use ARC, we look at somebody else to do that. There's nobody out there that gives us the breadth of services that they do. So they don't just build buildings, they do all the other things that video demonstrated to us. And I want to really take advantage of that. So where Derek brought up about, yes, it means the staff have got security of jobs and things like that. Yes, that's part of it. But actually, I want to tie in them as well, so they can say, right, okay, then we've got a nice big contract here, we can start doing investment. Keith wants this to happen because it's going to affect all councillors. We've all got those little patches, haven't we, where we represent that we want sorting out. Yeah, we're going to get a team in that's going to actually be able to do that, and that's all part of enhancing the service. So it's all that's what drove it for me really to want to do the contract now, so we can get on with it. Otherwise, we'll wait until the election. Then they've got to go through all the contractual things again. So you're talking about halfway through the term of the next council before we get them things done. So it's about getting it done now. So, you know, I hope you accept that as my reasoning behind it, really. Because, you know, what they do bring to us is incredible. And they've actually saved us a substantial amount of money when we've had things over-designed. And then we've asked Art to come in and say, look at the design. And then we've driven the cost. And the £5 fine to the chairman's charity, whatever it is, for having the phone on. We've driven down the cost of projects, and the schools are a prime example of that, where we're doing, you know, good things with schools and making things happen. So, you know, I'm a big fan, to be fair, and I want to secure them to make sure we keep them going.
Thank you, Councillor Gilfoyle. Wayne, you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So it's just a quick point. So I think it's been raised a couple of times, and obviously speaking in capacity as a director on the art board as well, but external works and the pipeline in particular. So one of the opportunities I think that comes out in the report is that we're seeing across public sector some challenges that are not dissimilar. So the commonalities, and art fill that void for us. So one of the areas we'll look to exploit and work with, in particular, MCA, as has been alluded to. Is offering those services and functions to other local authorities as well, and that gives us a degree of confidence around that future pipeline. The fact we're building up expertise in art that benefits us first and foremost, but can equally be applied to other local authorities who've got those similar challenges as well.
Thank you. Okay, what, Councillor Adams?
Thank you, Chairman. Unsurprisingly, I'm going to try and drive a little bit of green conversation in this part. Few things really. I want to understand in terms of architectural design. I noticed that was a key part, obviously, of ARC's operation. In terms of the architectural design, are we incorporating things like the energy plan and the design around that building in terms of cost reduction towards the school itself? Because obviously, operating costs in terms of energy are incredibly high and can, you know, cause organisations difficulty, especially as it's such a changeable market. And also subsequently from that, are we talk, I know you mentioned Dan, around retrofitting and going back and future decarbonising previous buildings. In direct weighted measure with that decarbonising, I'm assuming we're looking at that from a cost saving benefit for the school as well, because, you know, for me it's absolutely key that while we're achieving a decarbonisation, we're also doing a cost reduction for the energy and usage of those buildings. So to understand that, and also when new ideas, so new innovations come up, which again happens in this market particularly, it's such an incredibly fast changing market, and also as the costs of certain things are coming down, i.e. solar is significantly cheaper than it used to be, battery storage is now incredibly cheaper than it used to be. Are we ensuring that new ideas are being fed in as well? So you've seen recently maybe car parks that have got covers with solar panels on. So instead of damaging our green spaces with them and things like that, or on roofs, which typically they are we thinking outside the box about innovation and about how we can effectively cover our concrete spaces, if you like, with things like that as well, which obviously cools the cars, and the cars have to use less energy to cool themselves down. I think that's it. Thanks.
Derek, can you pick that up? Oops.
Yeah, thank you. Very good questions. I'll pick those up, and no doubt Dan will probably add a couple of things as well. In terms of kind of reducing carbon and particularly our school bills, I think that was at the heart of the question. The new schools that we're currently building all have to be, and it's a requirement of the prime funder, usually the DFE, but we kind of got ahead of that in 2021-22. All new schools are carbon neutral, net zero at the point of operation, so they're all electric, for example. And we use, to touch on your question around innovation, we use modern methods of construction increasingly to ensure that the energy use of those schools is reduced. So the new schools that we are building and the significant refurbishments that we're either overseeing or delivering as well are significantly advantageous to us in carbon use terms, and also to the schools in terms of cost of operation. So I think we're in a good place, and with that is the more that we could do always, and there's always that judgment to be made around the initial cost versus the life cycle saving, particularly in an academised world, because of course those life cycle savings don't then accrue to the council but to an external partner. That's not a reason for us not to do it, but it's absolutely a factor. In terms of the broader premises estate and the broader schools estate, are we looking to achieve the same, i.e. reduce the cost of operation through investment in green refurbishment or expansion? Absolutely. I think the real challenge for us comes with those, particularly in the schools estate, and particularly in the maintained schools estate, where we've got schools that aren't being expanded, aren't being significantly refurbished, but we're still keen to develop both reduced energy costs and reduced energy usage. That's a challenge for us, as it is for all local authorities, because of the funding constraints that we've got. But we're always obviously wanting to work with governing bodies and with schools, and to generate external income and external grants where we can, to drive investment in the schools estate, but also our own estate, because we have plenty of those challenges in the kind of 300 odd premises, delivery premises that we operate as a council, whether that's schools, youth clubs, children's centres, that kind of thing. Dan, you might want to.
Yeah. So building on what Derek said, building new schools is easy because we can set a standard, BREEAM excellent, or whatever, but there's a cost to that, the premium to it. In terms of your point about using new technologies, yes, we do, but often when we're building new schools, we've got a small site and we're restricted to what we do. But the old Section 106 agreements usually don't give us the best size. I know that's changed going forward, the work that Wayne's doing. So we do that. From an art point of view, one of the things I've tried to do over the years is to keep building the team. And only last year we appointed a new head of building services, which is mechanical, electrical and plumbing. Is a specialist who came from the private sector. He knows all the new methodologies that more than we actually know within our team. We're very good at architecture, very good at structure. M&E were probably a weakness, and actually that's one of the big drivers that we can do at the moment, even across the old school estate, is get the M&E right. Obviously there's a pattern there in terms of making sure the end users know how to use that building. You know, it's not good to open your windows every day if you're trying to keep the heating, whatever. So we're working on that. But what's more important is that we've been working with Wayne and the property team. We've completely reviewed all our standards for everything, from children's centres to schools and everything. That's everything down to doorknobs and everything, because we've got to try and tie in the responsive repairs activity with the new build activity. Because everything matters. You know, the way we change our heating systems, the way we change our fabric of our buildings. So that's a big piece of work that's took probably 12 months. And I know that's going to come back to a future committee that sets out the new standards, which at the heart of it is energy efficiency and carbon reduction.
Thank you, Dan. Let's bring Wayne in.
Yeah, the only thing about it, and Derek had added, and Derek and Dan have covered it, is we've got a really good relationship now with Nottingham Trent University as well through ARC. So their Centre of Sustainable Design, so to put us ahead of the game, really, Mike, in respect of what's coming down the track, what are those future innovations. We're getting that information from NTU, and they're partnering with us on certain projects as well to make sure, for instance, Oak House is as sustainable, BREEAM excellent as it possibly can be. So, as Dan said, it's down to everything business as usual, but we're having that forward look as well.
Okay.
Thank you for those answers. That's fantastic. And I just wanted to congratulate you on the waste diversion from landfill figure as well. I think that's fantastic to beat that as well. It is incredible, and obviously speaks to the fact that you've used good suppliers who deliver things in the right way, so there's no excess waste and packaging and all that sort of stuff. I think that's a phenomenal stat, and like I said, please pass some congratulations to everyone that's involved with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Bring my vice chair, Councillor Gilfoyle.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the reasons identified within the report is about currently over the next 3 years is that a number of senior leaders are coming up for retirement, it seems. And that to me is a big risk, because obviously we've got people with experience in there and we've all heard the good story about what they are delivering currently. I just wondered that, it just struck out to me, one of the things that I know that organisations aren't very good at is succession planning, and wondered what you're going to do about that, because that is probably, out of all of it, you can extend the contract, but if you haven't got the right people with the right skills in the right place, then it could go the other way very easily. So for me, just concerned regarding succession planning and what you're doing about that.
One of the real reasons I want to try and extend it, like myself, I've done 42 years of public service. I might not look it, but I'm old now, and I won't be here for that much longer. And I believe in the next few years. Thank you. I know I feel it now. But when I came here and we first met with the Labour group and we did the transfer into Ogle, the key thing were about having succession planning and not having a reliance on external agencies such as Faithful and Gold or some of the professional bodies. We've done that. We've got a clear succession plan. It's a 3-year succession plan looking forward. For example, we've got a major director leaving soon, another one who retires at the end of the year. We've already got somebody in place to work alongside that person for the next 6 months before they retire. But it goes all the way down. But one of the benefits we've had with the model we've created jointly with the NCC is that people want to work for Ogle. It's well known now. At the first, we couldn't get anybody to work for us because nobody knew what we were. They wouldn't take the risk, and they do now. And that's one of the reasons I need the extension, because I need to make sure if I want to bring a new MD in to replace me, and I'm going to bring senior people into the organisation at all different levels, they'll look at a contract and panic, thinking there's only 2 years. No, it'll either be an only or subsidiary model or go back to the county council, and that'll bring its own risk. So we've got a clear succession plan. We've diversified as an organisation as well. You can see different services. But our age profile's gone down dramatically. We've really worked hard to get some young people in there, and the 3-year strategic partnership with NGU is bearing through instead of people coming through. But it's a risk. It's a significant risk, and I want to make sure before I leave that I can set the organisation up for the next 5 years, 8 years, to make sure we've got that longevity. Because I think what we have got in this model, and I would say this once I've been MD of it, is something quite unique. I've met with Derby City Council, I've met with Derbyshire County Council, and they all want an Ogle. I've got enough on dealing with Nottinghamshire County Council, but you've got something special, I think, and I don't want that to break down just because one or two key people leave at different parts of the organisation. And it's in our risk register. It's something we've discussed at the board with the board directors, and it's very, very important we keep employing people who want to come and work for us. So that's why I'm really keen to get the extension. Being open and honest with you, that's one of the reasons I want it to happen. I would like it to happen. Yeah, sorry, wrong tense.
Yeah. Really good question, Glynn.
Thank you.
It's so refreshing to hear that news that she's still driven to go forward. And Keith,
even though Dan said it, I want to underline it because that was another reason for me motivated to want to extend the contract, because if you've ever been round Arc and you see the breadth of talent in there, and they've got the younger ones coming up through the system as well. So I think there's opportunities for internal advancement in the succession planning, but to get the calibre and the quality of the people we want to be in there when the ones we've got leave, there needs to be that stability. There needs to be that contract, because if you're going to move from where you are into something, you need to think that actually I've at least got 5 years or at least got this amount of time. If you've only got a year left, 2 years left, they're not going to take that risk. And so to me, this is again one of the real drivers for me to want to extend the contract as soon as possible, because it's all about that. We've got one left, one leaving this year. That's 2 out of the pot. We need to get this stability in, so they know they're coming to something. Yes, they're coming to something special because of the breadth of what they do, but they also need that security of tenure for how long it's going to be, at least till the next contract comes up.
Thank you, Keith. No other councillors signalled. Oh, Mike, Introna, you want to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just reflecting on the two recommendations. Recommendation 2 suggests that we are here also to offer a view to the Cabinet Member for Economic Development, Asset Management, with regards to the proposal. Certainly from my perspective, given the positive representations this morning and both qualitative and qualified considerations to the questions, and some of the factors regarding why the need to extend now, I'm certainly quite happy to say yes, I support this 100%.
Okay, right, just Eric.
I was going to say pretty much the same thing, and the other thing about it is that we've had arguments about should we be making the decision now. The reason why we're making the decision now is because they originally were given a 10-year contract from 2016 to 2026, just a year after all those changes. Therefore, there would be a little bit of instability in terms of that security of tenure going forward. So I totally support what Councillor Introna has just said, and if that was a recommendation from him, I would like to second it.
Okay, that's fine. What I'm going to bring, no one else is signal to speak, so we're going to summarise the debate we've had, and we're going to look at the recommendations. But there are some additional points here, so we're going to bring Martin in, who's been making the notes, and we'll agree with this. Okay?
Just to summarise, these aren't an amendment to the recommendation. These are just a summary of actions that we've progressed. So obviously, I think you would like to know for me in the minutes, and we'll put it in there about the excellent health and safety record of ARC, and also the social value report that was referenced that's going to be published soon. We'll make sure that's circulated to committee members, so they're just kind of like additional actions. But obviously, we have had an amendment as well.
So we're going to take Jim.
I'm just wondering if it should reflect that some members of the committee is actually so concerned about the timing. That was all.
Okay.
As I say, we were very positive about the contract, etc. So there's no discrimination there at all. It is a matter of timing that some of us are a little concerned about, but concerned.
I think that it's been answered, hasn't it? With the succession and the timing. So with that, the recommendation, I'm going to take the additional recommendation. Yeah. Right, I'm going to take that as an amendment to the recommendation. So I need a vote on all in favour for the amendment to the recommendation. All in favour?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, need to.
So a series of questions have been asked today, haven't they? And they've been answered, I think, satisfactorily. The recommendation, if I understand this correctly, having been part of this committee before, is that we're asked to offer a view, which is precisely what we have done throughout the course of the debate today. I think what's now being suggested, if I haven't misrepresented you, Councillor Kerry, is that, Councillor Introna has given a view that he supports the idea of us carrying on the contract and wants to amend the recommendation to actually specifically say that on behalf of the committee. The question I just pose is that necessary? The committee has given its view today and has expressed a view which has been taken on board. I think there's a clear set of actions to include in the report for Keith. Do we really need to amend the recommendation? I mean, clearly somebody can move an amendment, but we've offered our view by the fact that we've all contributed and those things have been taken on board. Keith responded. I think we now need that, in my view, we now need that information to be captured in the report to Keith if he's taken the decision, and let Keith take the decision as cabinet member. Because otherwise, I think there's a danger that we're moving to a recommendation that just says, yes, go ahead. And actually, that then countermands the issues that people have raised today. And I still think there are some important points in the issues that have been raised today that need to be captured that aren't here in front of us.
I'm just going to take some advice because it has been moved and seconded. That's where we're coming from.
Okay, so just to confirm where I believe the position that we're at the moment. So recommendation 1, as printed in the report, relating to considers and comments on the proposals, that would stand. So all the comments and information that's been provided, the questions that have been answered, all of that would be still stand in terms of being taken into account. The proposed amendment relates to recommendation 2, and instead of saying it offers its view to the cabinet member for EDAM on the proposal, my understanding is that the proposal is to change that to that the committee supports the proposal to extend, and that amendment is what we're asking members to vote on as to whether or not they support that as a committee. So it's just the amendment to recommendation 2 that we're considering at the moment, whether or not members support that.
Sorry, Chair. I just I have to speak out against it for exactly the reasons Michael said. That amendment actually, although you say that everything is in recommendation 1, it sort of negates the whole issue of our concerns. But we've discussed it and agreed. So personally, I could actually vote for it as now. But with that amendment in, I don't think I can. I don't think I'll be able to vote for it.
From my point of view, it doesn't make a jot. If you sort of, if the recommendations are there, and if it comes up in the minutes of the comments you've made and the way you've made it and the way you've supported it, it won't make a difference in terms of the delivery of that and the timescale for it. So rather than sort of, I think it's been a really good debate, some really good questions, and I appreciate the suggestion, but actually I don't think there's a requirement for it. If we stick to the recommendations, I think that's perfectly adequate, and I'll walk out of here happy anyway. So that's the way I look at it.
Adams?
Thank you. Yeah, just to say, Chair, and we're taking on your comments, and obviously the 2 members there. We've got an amendment. Should we just vote on it? And then obviously the people that vote against it will know where we are.
Just waiting on that.
I think that's what we just confirmed, isn't it?
Draft something.
Yeah. So we're just voting on the amendment. Yes or no. You either support the amendment or you don't. That's how these committees work.
It's just yeah, they're doing it.
Yeah.
Councillor Pate.
I really welcome what Councillor Glynn said, and I'm not trying to be obtuse here. I'm simply making the point that we've had a really good discussion, and altering the amendment in the way that is being suggested, which has not been done to create an issue, will create a division in this committee where there doesn't need to be a division. Councillor Girling has the executive authority to make the decision. He's responded really graciously to the issues that have been raised today. If we force the amendment and we force a vote on the amendment, there will be a number of us, because of the issues we've raised today, who are not in opposition of the contract being continued, who will be forced to either abstain or vote against the recommendation. And that will then sit on the public record in perpetuity, and it will create a wider issue. So all I'm saying is, Councillor Introna's got every right. I hear that he's let me just finish this point. I hear that he's proposed the amendment and that the amendment's been seconded. I'm just simply saying, in the same vein as Keith, I'm appealing to us to just say, there's a recommendation here. Councillor Introna's made his point. It's on the public record that he supports the contract, as has Councillor Kerry. If the recommendation stays as it is, we'll get a unanimous vote. That's the point I'm making. It's a matter for colleagues about whether they choose to withdraw.
Councillor Introna in.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, given Councillor Girling's comment, and no desire to cause any disharmony within this committee, I'm more than happy to withdraw that amendment proposal. That said, number 2 clearly states that we are here to offer its view.
Yep.
And I was offering a view. I support this extension wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Well done to
all.
all.
I think the whole
Thank
chamber
you.
does. Okay. So with that, we can move to those 2 recommendations as set as set out. Okay. All in favour? We got there. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Now move to agenda item 8, which is the highways service contract. And ask Councillor Neil Clark, MBE, the Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I sense this might be a bit of a parallel debate to the previous one. I think it'll sort of carry on very similar lines, I suspect. only suspect, obviously. But as we all know, this is the purpose of this is to consider the extension of the contract with Via and the in-house delivery. Certainly, as far as I am concerned, an extension would be of benefit to the delivery services in Nottinghamshire. I suppose it's a bit like I don't know whether it's the racing world or the athletics world. There've been a lot of if you've got training up horses or training up athletes or whatever, and you change your training regime, and they start winning races, then you don't want to then go and cancel all that and change horses or change athletes or teams or whatever. Certainly, under Dan Marr's leadership, Via has come on leaps and bounds in changing the structure, and our officers have worked very well with Via in changing the whole ethos of the delivery of the services, and those improvements are now starting to manifest themselves. So I think basically this is a matter of consistency, and it's important that that consistency is actually manifesting itself. As I say, similar to the previous item, comments can be made that I can then take forward to a cabinet meeting in September, I think it is. Obviously, comments would be very beneficial. I would just say that if you're going to start talking about pensions, I've got a funny feeling that might be the day that Councillor Payne invited me to visit Parliament. So I might not be available. But apart from that, without further ado, Mr. Chairman, if I could invite Derek Higton to, there's a lot of detail involved, and so if I could invite Derek to present that detail.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Chairman. As with the previous item, just provided a few slides to kind of exemplify the report and offer some additional highlights and insights. The purpose of the report is exactly the same as that for the previous one, so I'll try and be a little bit speedier in working through this. So as you can see on screen there, Via, like ARC, is a TECL company, and there's some detail provided in the report about what that means and how they that kind of vehicle operates. I think it is worth pausing just to say that now Via is a wholly owned company of the County Council, so we own 100%. We constitute the majority on the board. That wasn't the case when Via was established as a joint venture, much like ARC, with Cormac and Cornwall County Council back in 2016. But the council purchased the 100% of the company back in 2019, and therefore is the sole owner of the company, which gives us both control of the board as well as our contractual control as well, in the same way that we have with ARC. Obviously, the focus of Via, I don't need to tell members, do I, is on operational management of all aspects of our highway network around the country and the county. And the origins of Via were similar to ARC, in that what we wanted to do was to develop commercial flexibility, greater value for money, and to ensure a continuous approach to improvement, innovation and cost control in our highways functions. It is worth saying that whilst much of the conversation with members and with the public focuses on the highway, the condition of the road surface, Via manages for the County Council a whole range of different highway related assets that are of equal significance to the public realm and public safety and connectivity and transport across the county. Things like bridges, for example, are massively critical pieces of local and in some cases national infrastructure that Via maintain for us as well. So it's not simply a company that manages our road condition, it manages our entire highway related assets, and that's a significant responsibility. If we go on to the size of the vehicle that we've got, and here Councillor Payne is an insight into the kind of contractual side, if you like. Similar sort of arrangement to ARC in the sense that Via can flex up and down, but a significant additional revenue input is there for Via in terms of the County Council's revenue maintenance budget, which Via manages for us across all 14 of our highway related assets, and of course a significant capital programme which is largely funded through DFT, Department for Transport monies that are awarded to all local highways authorities. It's worth saying there that what Via isn't is the Highways Authority. The County Council is the Highways Authority, but Via delivers and acts on behalf of, and in some cases as, the Highways Authority for the County Council. As you can see there, Via manages a significant highway network, and there's some examples there of the volume of activity, the volume of assets that we have within Nottinghamshire. So it's a good insight into the size of the operation. It includes a significantly higher number of staff than ARC, for example, and significantly greater ratio of day-to-day activity than is the case in ARC, where the day-to-day activity is a little bit more focused and a little bit less complex. Just a few examples there of the kind of delivery areas and programmes that we manage. Members will be familiar with some of those more than others, but you'll see all of them in your own wards and constituencies in the course of your business. And of course, they're matters that are very important to local people and our residents. Just touching on then, moving on to the kind of overarching benefits of Via. Very similar approach to that which we've discussed as far as ARC is concerned. There's a real focus on value for money, the quality of the work that's done, and the range of ways that we interact with our residents. I think it is worth saying, though, that obviously because we're dealing with the highway, it's an area of significant public interest, significant public concern. And the challenges that we face there are faced at the front end by Via, and in large part they are related to resource and the availability of resource. So we're not going to shy away from the fact that managing the highways both here and elsewhere regionally and nationally is a real challenge for local authorities because of those kind of funding constraints that we have. Our job at a local level is to drive as much value, as much innovation and as much delivery as we can, whilst ensuring as far as we can that the public are aware and informed of the work that we're doing. And that's a journey of continuous improvement that we're on. And the report references the Highways Review as a good example of member engagement and drive around that kind of issue. What Via also exists is to give us that commercial flex, the capacity to move up and down according to resource availability, and of course that drive around growing competency. And it's worth mentioning, restating the really good health and safety record that Via have established since 2016. That has been previously an area of real challenge for us as a highways authority when much of this service was inside the council. So it's really reassuring to see that establishment of health and safety culture, as in ARC, has taken place within Via. It's also the case that Via has got a footprint now in a commercial sense across the East Midlands. Via does some significant work on behalf of Derbyshire County Council around things like street lighting, for example. So the opportunity there for us as a region to maximise economies of scale, and it's certainly a conversation that we're that we're starting to contemplate having with the new East Midlands combined authority. And there's much detail in the report around the dividend that VIA generates for the council. So since inception, VIA has performed at a commercial level well enough to deliver a significant dividend to the county council, and of course to generate efficiencies within the company as well, which it delivers back into the contractual framework, so that we can squeeze more activity on the highway out of this arrangement. But VIA, in its 8 years, if we go on to the next slide, Martin, has proved to be financially secure and has delivered a significant dividend to the council in every year of its operation, I think, Nigel. And that looks set to continue. And to provide that sort of financial stability in a complex and really sensitive and difficult area like highways is a really positive statement that I'm able to make on behalf of the company. To move on then to social value, as is the case with ARC, VIA has a strong social value policy. It's got a similar track record in terms of employing local people, employing local subcontractors, and redeveloping really strong relationships with small and medium-sized enterprises within its field. There's some overlap between ARC and VIA, but there's also some separation as well in terms of that subcontractor network and the frameworks that it's part of. And VIA has taken the same kind of approach that ARC has taken over the last few years. I think it's also worth saying as well, particularly in that space where every piece of work that VIA does and that the county council does on the highway is scrutinised by the public and by residents, because of course they see every piece of work that's undertaken. That VIA's got a really strong track record of achieving external awards and accreditations that mark it out as a high achiever within its sector and within the highways and civils industry as well. And I think that's worthy of note. Just as with ARC, then the last point then around key performance indicators. As you would expect, the county council has a strong contract with VIA. Regardless of our ownership of the country, we manage VIA through our contractual arrangements. And as with ARC, we've got a very comprehensive performance indicator framework, which runs to, I think, well over 100 individual indicators. So what we've done there is provide a bit of a snapshot for you of some of the key performance indicators that we've got. And within the constraints of the resources that we have available to us, we're confident from an officer perspective and comfortable from an officer perspective that VIA is not only a good performer for us in terms of its outcomes and its use of resources, but it's also in a space where it's maximising its efforts to keep improving. And that's an area that both VIA and officers are continuing to focus on for all the reasons that members will be aware of. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Going to move the recommendations that set out. Okay. I think we are going to have a pretty much mirrored debate as before, aren't we? And just to remind members that this is to offer our views, not to alter anything, but it's to take for the cabinet member to take to cabinet for a final decision. Okay. So I'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Payne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, and thanks to Derek. I should start by saying that I just think a huge thank you is owed to the staff who work for VIA. I think Derek was underplaying this when he said that this is a tricky area. This is more than a tricky area. It's the area that members receive the most correspondence about, certainly in relation to road maintenance, and notwithstanding the Yarbu and the robust debate that takes place in this chamber, which is important given the issue, it is really also important to say that the staff are absolutely, in my dealing, exemplary and outstanding. And in particular, I want to put on record my thanks to Paula Johnson, Sharon Kirk and Laura Trussler, particularly Paula Johnson. The three of them are unsung heroes in my view and never get the credit that they deserve. And, you know, when they're on the receiving end of a frustrated elected member at 9 o'clock in the morning over a particular issue and they respond in the way that they do, that deserves credit, and they don't get the thanks. Often elected members get the credit when they're there at a photo in front of a road that's been resurfaced or a new crossing that's been delivered, etc. And it's not the people who actually do the really difficult work as well as the operatives on the front line. I'm sat also in front of Gary, Neil and Dan, who all at significant different times, including Dan picking up the phone one night to me while he was on his holiday at 11:30 at night when there'd been a particular issue. I've always engaged in a way that I have found to be constructive, supportive, creative in trying to address the concerns of residents. And I always try, whenever I'm raising an issue with VIA, not to just criticise, but to raise issues that genuinely are of concern to residents. So I just wanted to start by saying that, Chair. I think the report is a helpful report. I really appreciate what Derek's just drawn attention to in terms of the KPIs. There's some really good figures in here about the number of projects delivered. I would have liked to have seen what that was in terms of targets. And I know that some of these are not set against targets, the projects that are being delivered, but actually I think you have got a good story to tell. And I think that would be nice to be brought out in terms of the report. Allow me a moment of constructive criticism, if I may, and this is not a reflection on any of the individuals. Paragraph 32 talks about competence, capability and capacity. If I can just politely say, there still remains an immense challenge in terms of public trust around maintenance of the road network, particularly in terms of responsiveness around repair of potholes. And I want to just, in saying this, say that I absolutely recognise the challenge around quantum of funding and resource delivered to the county council and the challenges nationally, etc. And I will do whatever I can in my capacity as Member of Parliament, alongside other colleagues cross-party in Nottinghamshire, to lobby for you with my own party now in government to make sure that you get the resource that you need, notwithstanding some of the national challenges. But it also would be disingenuous if I weren't sat here saying it isn't all hunky-dory. This is a big decision, and there is definitely a challenge around trust from the public about particularly the responsiveness around repairing potholes. And I think sometimes that is unfair because the operatives are doing a really good job, the resources are limited, but there's no point in pretending otherwise. There is a challenge around trust. And I just say that as a constructive piece of criticism, that it is incumbent on colleagues who work via both at management level and operational level, but also leadership within the county council, both politically and managerially, and I include myself in this, to actually try and work through how to resolve that. And I think you talked about it as an ongoing journey, Derek, but I think that is really, really a critical piece of work to regain people's trust in relation to VIA. Notwithstanding that, I think there is a really good story to tell here, and that shouldn't be lost sight of. And obviously, you're not only responsible for potholes and maintenance of roads. There's lots of things in here that actually you never ever get credit for, that never ever get talked about, that you do quietly in the background, whether that be ensuring that trees don't fall down on roads, whether it be clearing up trees on a main road network to make sure that people can get to and from work, whether it be responding in a flooding incident in the way that you have certainly in a number of communities in Gedling, in my own county division, and you never really get the credit that you deserve for that. So I think it's a tale of two halves. I think you've got a very good story to tell. I think functioning operationally, I was a sceptic of VIA I think I was one of the only people in the Labour group who spoke out vociferously about my concerns around it. I think some of my concerns were borne out. I think also, though, I'm a big enough person to say that you've proved me wrong in a number of my criticisms as well. But I think it is a tale of two halves. I think you've got a good story to tell. I think you've delivered in the way that the county council expected and residents. But I just think there is still a big issue about public trust around maintenance of the road network. And I'm not saying that to just throw the ball at you. It's a collective responsibility of all of us. And if I hadn't said that today in today's debate, I think people who are watching us here, taxpayers who fund this service, would be saying, what planet are you on? Because we're still not getting this entirely right. There are still situations where I see operatives coming out, repairing a pothole, and there is blatantly a pothole right next to it that should clearly be repaired, that would save taxpayers money, and we're not doing it. I know you'll come back to me and say there's a limit to resource and there's a reason those things happen, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, we are judged by our taxpayers and by the residents who live in the county, and I think they would have things to say if they were sat in here today. And it's incumbent on us all to try and work hard to make sure that we improve those things. Notwithstanding that, well done to all of you for the hard work. And as I say, Laura, Paula, and Sharon have been exemplary. I wouldn't be able to carry out my role as a county councillor without those three people, and I try and thank them as often as I can. But I would like to put on record to you, Dan, and I'd like you to express back to your staff our sincere thanks for the work that they do.
Thank you, Councillor. I've echoed that I work with Paula very closely, Laura and Sharon. Well, I was out with Paula last week, and how she deals with the public is absolutely amazing. And because the flack that we get, I guarantee that 70 to 80% of your inboxes are down to highways issues. But to have an officer that can actually front it, I think she does an amazing ambassador for VIA. So I would associate myself with those comments. Councillor Purdue-Horan, you were next to speak on council. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And can I completely align myself with the comments of Councillor Michael Payne MP regarding the individuals in the front line. And actually, I'm pretty sure that our colleagues wider across the county would probably say similar things to their colleagues. And what we certainly don't want to do is to come across that there is a concern with the front line as such. Looking at paragraph 39 just indicates the absolutely enormous number of jobs that VIA gets involved in, and I broadly agree with what Councillor Payne has said. But he's absolutely right. There is an issue, and I approached my colleagues in the Independent Alliance for just to have a quick view of this report and to come back to me with comments, and I was almost sorry I did. And I know that yourself and Councillor Gilfoyle will not have the time to listen to all those comments, and wouldn't be fair either. But something isn't right, and I think there needs to be a fundamental review and consideration of the contract. And I do accept that paragraph 61, talking about the difficulties of bringing it back in-house, and paragraph 62, looking at a complete externalisation, may not be the answers, of course. But I think perhaps a review of the contract as such is probably called for. And I would not be in favour of extending the contract to 2031, which goes beyond even the next election after next year. So I would like, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to suggest an amendment to the recommendations that we extend the contract for 12 months to the 31st of March 2027, and that would give a new administration. It may not be Councillor Clark in the seat next May, but it would give someone else an opportunity to fundamentally have a look at the contract, which does not mean getting rid of VIA at all, but to have a serious look at the setup and the process that we have, and give us time to consider how we get it right for the residents and users of VIA's assets across the county. Thank you.
You propose an amendment. Do you have a seconder?
I formally second that.
So, just going to get the wording for that amendment. Okay, and we're just getting the wording for your amendment, Francis.
Okay. I like the wording.
Have you got? Well, we take it from what you said.
Well, we could just simply.
Yeah, to scrub the 5 years, and then we'll take a vote on that, and then we'll carry on with the debate.
Just a point to be just a little bit awkward, Chair. Wouldn't it be better having the vote on the amendment at the end after we've had the debate?
We could do.
We can
Yeah.
discuss the
Okay, I'll bring Councillor Cream. You're in, so you want to come next?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a simple question on paragraph 31 and 47, the same sort of issue. Paragraph 31 is on about the savings we made with, I'll read it out, continues to drive efficiencies. A 29 million budget at the moment for staff. Budget will be 28.9, it's 0.3 million. I'm just wondering if that is actually realistic, given inflation is still 2%, the cost of materials, etc. And as we said earlier on, it's a market which is in competition with the private sector as well for staff. So that's particularly the staff budget. I'm just wondering if that's actually achievable. And again, items 47, drive efficiency across both its business functions and service delivery. And again, is that actually achievable? In addition, historical contractual inflation has been suppressed through efficiency. You can only get so many efficiencies over so long before you start cutting down to the bone. And being as a lot of the problems we've got with fire isn't the actual staff, etc., except that totally the rest of it, but it's partly environmental. The actual cost of reacting to this weather, where holes are being opened up again within weeks rather than months, etc. So I just wondered how realistic these targets are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Derek. Do you want to pick that?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I think Dan will pick those up, but I mean, the short answer is that we've got a good story to tell on those, and our colleagues are well on the way to delivering those savings. But Dan will exemplify.
One of the things we've done since I took over 18 months ago now, we're working very closely with the client. You can't see a joint between us. You know, we really are working as one organisation. We have driven efficiencies forward. We've got control of the establishment. The establishment was growing too big, and we've rationalised the establishment, and that means a number of posts have not been filled. Not frontline posts, but some back office posts and other posts that aren't really needed. We continue to drive efficiency through the organisation. For an organisation that's probably turning over 70 million, we had a distinct lack of commercial resource. We've now appointed a commercial director. We've got a commercial function in driving value at the front end in terms of putting the cost prices together with our supply chain and through self-delivery, and at the back end in making sure we deliver the budgets we said we're going to deliver for. And you'll see that in some of the way we've done the capital programme this year, with all the schemes planned in, within budget, and all to be delivered by the end of December. There are efficiencies. It's a big organisation, but we have to, like you said, Councillor, we have to do this carefully. We can't do it as a revolution. It's got to be an evolution, and we're trying to drive commerciality into the organisation. It's going to take time. Those asked from the council and the other efficiency targets are deliverable this year, and we are built up in the organisation a small amount of reserves, which makes sure that we can be a bit more self-sufficient in terms of investing in our local depots and so forth. So it is a journey, but what I put in the report, or what we put in the report, is achievable at this moment in time.
Yeah. Do you have actually key times for those to be achieved? Because in here it's just that. Is there a time scale when you're hoping to achieve them, or is it literally the end of the year?
Oh, the one you talked about earlier on is that cost to employ, and that's a given. We gave a 3% pay rise, and that's a fact that stands this year. Ongoing efficiencies will materialise as we go through the year. Going on, so some are short term, some are long term.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Just like to echo what my colleague Councillor Payne said earlier about the staff that work in our area. That they're brilliant at dealing with issues and dealing with the individuals. Sometimes, as I say, very difficult issues, but they, are really positive and respond very quickly. And to be fair, all the team, I don't think I've really had any problems with issues, and people will try to look out of the box if they can help you to get things done, which I think is brilliant. Just in relation to the extension or not of the contract, just from a technical point of view, and I don't know whether you can answer this, Derek, or whether Dan can, because obviously I've not got the contract in front of me, but because the county council is the sole owner, we can at any time revise that contract.
Yeah.
So in reality, if that is what any administration, whether that be new or otherwise, we could do that at any particular point. So in reality, if people were minded to do that, and I think that genuinely you raise issues as
Mike has done and as I have done about predominantly potholes. I'd say also other things in my area, but Gary usually deals with them, growth around trees. But yeah, but you know, it is a major issue and it is resource led, as people have said. But I think, you know, there is that opportunity to review that contract at any time by the council. It's not one where we're sort of fixed like most others. Once that term's up, we can actually say no, we want to do that. So just in the thought of, you know, that if because members will probably want to review it at any particular time, as we have done scrutiny reviews. But clearly, if we wanted to alter that contract, the county council, as I understood it, can do it at any time.
Yeah, thanks, Glynn. I'm going to bring Derek and Neil to comment as well.
Yes, thank you. Vice Chair. That's absolutely right. Because the council is the sole owner of the company and therefore the sole shareholder, the council can choose to undertake a review of the arrangements with via contractual and otherwise, pretty much at any point. Obviously, the directors need, when they're on the board of directors, need to act in the interest of the company rather than the specific interests of the county council. But as the sole shareholder, the county council can absolutely express a view about the operation of the company and the operation of the contract, and can use that leverage to require changes at any point. And that's what makes it a different vehicle than the one we've just been discussing with ARC.
Thank you, Derek. Neil, did you want to comment?
Well, that point I was going to make about the wholly owned structure of the company, so that's been covered. But also, it is a bit like the previous item. As regards the amendments, it's more about taking all the comments into account so that they are there to assist in the final decision making. And I would just also make the comment about timescale. Yes, we can look at it as a wholly owned company anyway, but if you are going to invest in new equipment and new vehicles, etc., you're not going to depreciate them over 12 months. So it's important that any company that is looking at long-term investment, that they've got some certainty so that they can invest in those new vehicles and new equipment, because they don't want to be spending taxpayers' money and a fortune on repairing or keeping a vehicle going when it should be replaced. So we need that certainty.
Of course, 12 months doesn't give that. So, I'm going to bring Councillor Shaw in. You signal to speak.
Thank you. Reiterate what my colleagues have said around the room. This is not criticism of the 600 plus workers. It's more about the processes of the operational of the company. It's the opportunity we have here to look at the contract. It's a very, very cosy relationship that we've got. There's no separation of power or appears not to be within the company. That shows a clear separation and accountability to members who feel frustrated that they cannot actually get anything done without having to scream and bang and stamp their feet in this room. The pothole machine, well, does it go around the villages more than it comes around Ogle? I've never seen it in Ogle. Time and time again, we get reports of substandard jobs having to be reworked. This is almost on a weekly basis. My inbox is full of pothole. Under via East Midlands, we must have wasted millions of pounds in having to actually do work. And I've also highlighted in this room, why don't we adopt a systems thinking, where if you have, as already been mentioned, one pothole and another pothole has been identified, it's been sprayed around, you do them both together. It's a systems thinking, and that will be the way forward there. But to actually extend the contract to 2031 doesn't hamstring the next administration, but the one after. I hear what Councillor Gilfoyle said, and I thank him for his insight, that we can look at this at any time we like. But will it be looked at any time we like? As a council, this is the single most contentious point that we get raised in this room, other than social adult care, our children and care that, and that's in that way. For me, if we don't look at this now and don't have a way forward to look to 2031, it's not sustainable. Let the new administration take a look at roots and branches effect of looking at the way we do our repairs on the roads, and I think that will be the way forward. For me, Chair, that's my opinion, and I firmly believe that we should be moving forward with the next administration and not this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any officer like to pick up those points? There's not really a question, it's more of a statement. But okay. Councillor Payne, did you think you wanted to come back?
Just if I may, just very briefly on the amendment. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Francis, and I think I understand why you've bought the amendment and the spirit in which it's intended, Francis, and what you're trying to achieve. And I say this as somebody who was a critic and a sceptic about VIA when it was first established. I think I was the only person who maybe voted against or spoke out in the chamber. I'm not entirely sure the amendment, Francis, achieves what I think you're trying to achieve for two reasons, really, which is why I can't support the amendment. One, there are already provisions for a review at any point by any administration of the contract, which I think partially achieves what you're setting out. But secondly, I guess there's a concern for me about the perfect becoming the enemy of the good. Is VIA perfect? No, it's not. Is it still making mistakes? Yes, it is. Am I critical of it? Yes, I am. But we are about to enter a critical period in terms of transport infrastructure for this county council. We've just seen the establishment of a combined authority and an elected mayor. We're about to see transfer of significant monies from central government to the combined authority, which is not in isolation from VIA's operation. The critical national infrastructure around our road network speaks to the infrastructure around our A road network and other work that VIA is doing. This is a competitive environment with our colleagues, in the West Midlands, in the north of the country, not least in, our immediate neighbours. And I just slightly worry that throwing all the pieces up in the air in 2027, right in the middle of that period where significant monies are coming, is disruptive and potentially hamstrings the ability of us, Nottinghamshire, the county, to progress some of the massive projects that are currently on the cards. And for those reasons, finally unbalanced, because I absolutely respect why you have suggested the amendment, Francis, and I also respect that you bought it with good intentions. I don't think it's the right amendment. What I do think, and I'm not suggesting this is an amendment, I'm just going to put this on the public record, given the frustrations that have been articulated by Councillor Purdue-Horan and Councillor Shaw and others in this room, Dan and his team might want to reflect alongside the cabinet member when the decision's made about, is it worthwhile building into that additional term a midpoint at which there is a commitment to reflection on the contract, in a similar way to we did in the highways review, where we looked very cold-heartedly and dispassionately about, not just in relation to our response on highways, but other work that VIA is doing, candidly and dispassionately, whether actually we're delivering alongside what is expected by the county council in terms of the contract. I'm not moving that as an amendment. I'll just put that on the table and leave that for colleagues, because it might be a way of addressing some of the concerns that have been raised by Councillor Purdue-Horan and Councillor Shaw, I think in very well-intentioned ways. But for those reasons, I can't support the amendment. I think it's then incumbent on Dan and his colleagues to demonstrate to us that they've taken on board the legitimate criticisms that people have made today.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I just, agree with the sentiment there. I think since VIA's inception all those years ago, it's in a far better place now than it was. So, I've got one more member signalling to speak, and then we'll go to the vote on the amendment. I'm going to bring Councillor Owen in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to hear from Councillor Payne about all this money that's going to be coming in to be spent on our roads. It's going to be pouring in from all sources, from the sounds of things. So get yourselves prepared over in VIA to get it all spent and everything done right. I would echo what he said about the staff. I found the three staff that he mentioned in particular very helpful, and Dave Walker prior to his departure for greener pastures up north, and John Turner, who is Paula's deputy, has also been very helpful. I shall not be supporting the amendment. I think it's totally inappropriate. I'm not as charitable as Councillor Payne to think that it's been put forward with the best of intentions. Of course it hasn't. It's been put forward simply from a political perspective, nothing more and nothing less. That doesn't mean to say that everything in VIA is right, because it isn't. You only have to read social media to see the criticisms and the cynicism in some cases that some people hold them in for a variety of reasons. But one thing that they do seem to coalesce around, when a significant piece of work has been done in an area, then people do comment how wonderful it is, what a good job they've done, and they just want more of them doing. But I would just raise a couple of areas, not necessarily resource-based, where I think VIA could perhaps improve its performance in delivery to me, and that's in the challenge to the statutory undertakers when they come in. We seem to allow them to do an awful lot without the challenge, without getting onto their backs and saying and pinning them down. They drift on and checking whether the reinstatements have been done properly. And I think there's quite a bit more work there that needs to be done. And the other thing that I would mention is a sharpening up in timescales. It does at times seem an interminable length of time to get what I see as an individual elected member representing my division to get a job done. And I'll just quote one example. Got a lighting column that's been out of action for over a year now, and got it examined. It's got asbestos in it. Well, okay, it's got asbestos. It's got to be dealt with. Well, I want it done. The people there want it done, but it's a whole raft of, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to go here, we've got to go there. It needs to be much sharper, and until you get that sharpness, then you are going to get the criticisms and the I won't say abuse, but being made a fool of, the cynicism in particularly in social media. So I'm not sure that those are necessarily resource-based issues, but those are two that come to mind. But we need to let that contract now for the period of time that we have suggested, for all the reasons that were given in the previous discussion. They're exactly the same reasons, so for goodness sake, let's get on and let's get moving.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Kerry.
Yes, I just want to echo some of the comments made by colleagues here about the staff in the front line. Had great work done by Laura, Paula and Sharon, absolutely. And I think part of that is the way that they now want to come out and meet residents more and want to communicate with members in the public domain. I think that's been a really, really good improvement, and I've seen a lot of benefits from that. We know about resources. We know that I don't want to be too political, but several years ago when we took over this administration, there was over £100 million worth of backlogs in potholes, and time and weather and storms and all that has made it worse. So we do need government, and please, Councillor Payne, congratulations, please, MP, please carry on the work down in Whitehall, get us some more money, and whether it has to come by the mayor or not, I don't care. The other thing is the comms. So we saw in the slides the things now. We're getting the signs that say works are going to start in so many months' time on a road. It's great. So keep up the comms, get the local people involved, and I think we'll get better. And whilst you're doing that, you can still try and improve the way that we sort out double repairs, if you like, that are happening. So thank you very much. And I agree that we should extend and give you some security of tenure in your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerry. No one else signalled to speak. We have to. Well, I'm going to hand over to Martin.
Yeah. So firstly, just the not the recommendation. That I think just a note, and we'll get this actually in the minutes to thank the thanks to the committee, to the work of the staff for delivering the service that they do and provide. So Sarah just drafted up the amendment. So the first recommendation is the same.
The first recommendation.
So the first recommendation is as such. It's a second recommendation that it's been worded up that the committee recommend that the cabinet member extend the contract for 1 year to enable review of the contract to take place. So that's the amendment. So shall we have to vote on the amendment?
Take a vote on the amendment. All in favour? All those against? The amendment falls.
Yep. So the original has to be moved in second.
So the original recommendations, recommendation 1 and 2, were moved and seconded at the beginning. Councillor Kerry.
Can I just say, just to add one thing to something I forgot to mention, the flood team, some of the fantastic work the flooding team do as well, which I think hasn't really got across earlier. Right, Thank you for allowing me that.
Yeah, so the amendment's fallen. So go back to the original recommendations, which were recommended and seconded at the beginning of the debate. Can I take a vote? All in favour? Anyone against? 2 against. Okay. Thank you. So the recommendations passed. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Councillor Adair. Thank you. Are you staying for the final? No? Okay, you've had enough. You can stay, Councillor Owen. Okay, so we go to agenda item 9, outcomes of the scrutiny review, the cost of living. Okay, it's my review. So the purpose of the report was to share with the overview committee the findings that have. Okay, thank you. To share with the overview committee the findings that have arisen from the task and finish review around the cost of living, and to seek endorsement of the committee for the recommendations from the scrutiny task and the finish review around cost of living, and these are going to be submitted to cabinet for consideration. Yeah, I'm going to move the recommendations as set out, and that's what seconded. Okay, and then open it up.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. Councillor Payne sent his apologies that he's had to catch the train to get to London for parliamentary business. But yeah, on the review, there are some sort of things lacking with the review at the time. One of the criticisms of the review, by the way, it's good to have had the review. It was right to have the review at that particular time. If you remember, there was crisis with people living with cost of living, etc. But we did ask for the review at the very first meeting.
Yes.
Of this, and it's taken best part of 18 months to do. The actual recommendations are some specific, like we proposed not to consider warm rooms as a motion at full council 22, including the recommendations. To support the implementation of a warm room scheme across not just similar to existing schemes, that motion was voted down by the Conservative group. And one of the recommendations in this review needs to be acknowledged that the leadership has actively decided not to implement certain policy measures adopted by other councils. And I'll go to Gedling, where we had warm rooms, etc., where we actually opened up places which the council decided we couldn't do because it wasn't in our direct domain. Pardon my language. Domain. And it took too long to establish, raised as a priority in several select committee meetings. And we can't accept the recommendation that the one council had the resources to do more, but the leadership decided not to do more. So we're not going to vote against it because there are some good works in this, some good recommendations, etc. It's just disappointing we didn't go deeper and we didn't go further at a time when there was a national crisis when we could have made a material difference to the actual groups that were actually suffering and trying to help people. The district councils, as we said, did an awful lot voluntarily and outside of what they needed or were required to do. We did a lot from government grants, etc., and did what we were required to do, but we didn't take many steps outside of what we were required to do. So yes, it's a good report eventually, but it's not a complete report. It could have been had little bit more detail on how we're going to help going forwards if there's another crisis, etc., with groups, the age concerned, for instance, just as an example rather than anything else, and other groups that help people in time of need. So, yes, welcome the report eventually, I would like personally to see if we could actually review what's happened since and what we could go forward with. In case there's another one, I mean, we need to actually look at our neighbours now at the moment. The national government's doing it with COVID, etc. And I think there's a need within this report that this shouldn't be the last one. We should actually look at what we did right, what we did wrong. And I'm not saying we did things wrong. We didn't do things. What we did right, and we did very well, and it's very well appreciated. But we could have done and should have done more. So yeah, we'll be abstaining on the report.
Okay.
So
thank you, Councillor. But what the review did highlight was the county's responsibilities and what is within our remit, and it did also it worked as a way of we signposted to our partners that we work closely with, our district colleagues. A lot of us are double hatters, so it was easy to do that bit, and we have covered at the very beginning where it sat in the timeline of the work programme. There were priorities that needed to be done, and we needed to scope this one out, and it did exactly as it did take a long time. There was an awful lot of discussion taking place in the task and finish group with outside bodies, and to get them in one place at one time, it takes time. So we can have that. Councillor Gilfoyle, come in.
Yes, Chairman. Chairman, I'd like to start off by initially thanking the officers who worked on delivering services at the time, and also to the voluntary sector, to the CVSs, the voluntary sector there, and the CAB groups who worked tirelessly and are still working tirelessly. Because let's not forget, this is still ongoing. This is, there are areas that are still suffering in relation to cost of living. It's not gone away. My concern in particular is that as and when this money that has been put there to assist and help and guide people, but also in some cases feed people, is taken away, that there will be a vacuum, there will be nothing there. And also the additional monies that have been given to the organisations that have been working on our behalf is also going to be taken away, and what that will mean in the lack of support that's available for people that are still suffering. Another comment I'd make is that clearly it wasn't a report that was supported by the majority group, because nobody turned up. It was yourself. It was, and by the independents. For me, it was appalling. It was an important piece of work, and I think could have had probably even a better write-up than what it's got. But nobody from other than yourself, from other parties, came to any of the meetings, and I think that is really poor, especially when it's our communities that we're going through and still going through this difficult time. And I think that reflects badly on the administration, personally. As you said, it's here. I think there's still quite a bit of, concerns I've got is the future, and I think that we need to keep a watching brief on what happens when that particular money is removed, and the public health have used their reserves, which they've done, when all that's dried up, and the money that we get from central government currently is dried up, what impact that will create. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, because during the review there was a lot of criticism of central government and the funding that came from that. It would be interesting to see the funding that the new government. I'm going to bring Councillor Adams in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just really to also mention Councillor Gilfoyle's point about attendance. So obviously, as the chair of this committee, you are on the group that is of the administration. So the administration was completely represented on that committee. So I think we fulfilled our requirement to be there, and enthusiasm for that was obviously taken forward by yourself. as far as the funding is concerned, absolutely right. And I think that funding comes from central government. So, you've got the ability, as you had before with the previous government, to raise those points. And as Councillor Elliott has pointed out, I very much look forward to seeing them wholeheartedly support that and continue the fantastic work of the previous government. Thank you.
Councillor Kerry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good report. A lot of work obviously done by yourselves that attended all the different meetings. Just have some concerns about recommendation 3, which is highlighted in paragraphs 48, 49. And the financial resilience project should be re-established. My concerns are that it does say that the financial resilience group work has now been well integrated across the council. So why would we need to re-establish that group? And somebody just explain what the benefits of doing so would be, please.
I think it's also the financial resilience group was a way of like bringing activity together, doing things in a different kind of way. And obviously the challenges that have been experiencing cost of living, they've now been integrated. I think that the thought was from the members of the review group that if something new came about that wasn't able to be dealt with existing methods that have been integrated, that project could be restood up to bring that activity together. So the council had the resource to be able to provide those activities. It's kind of like, because obviously when the cost of it was all things that weren't planned for, so it's just just something new pressure. That's it.
So my point being, so are there financial implications of that then? It doesn't say there are in the report. So that is the reporting.
Councillor Kerry, what it's alluding to is the fact that the resilience group did a good job. Yeah. And was very good at it. And the comment there is saying that in the event of this situation arising again, that resilience group should be formed again.
At that time, not. Okay, thank you for clarification.
That would be a good way to pursue it again.
So with that, no other members signal to speak. The recommendations have been moved. The recommendation has been moved and seconded. Take a vote. All in favour? Show of hands. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Yes, there's 2. 2 abstentions. So that's carried. Thank you. We'll now move to the final item on the agenda, which is the work programme. We'll actually introduce the work programme and advise that this is the last meeting that is covered by this current work programme, and a meeting for all committee members, as well as any other backbench members, will be held on Thursday the 25th of July at 3:30. Teams 1, everyone's invited, and it's to develop the new work programme for 24-25. So that's a good opportunity for everyone to come forward with their ideas, and so we avoid that criticism, don't we, where something's not being scrutinised. This gives you that opportunity. Councillor Prima.
Just a question. Everybody's been invited, which is right. Is there going to be an email out to all members, so it's not just the committee that's aware?
It has been sent to all members. It has been sent, and even though we have said it was a hybrid, but if at all possible, it is if you can attend in person, because it just makes it a little bit more interactive. But if you can't, obviously attending in hybrid is fine. But if you can attend in person, it's big much welcome.
This Thursday we've got cabinet, so most of us have been anyway. Okay. So all in.
It's just a note.
Yeah, to note. That's noted. Noted. I'll now close the meeting and thank you all for your attendance. Enjoy.